Hey guys, now I bet this is a familiar character to you, especially if you saw the Pocahontas film when you were growing up, or maybe you just love Disney a lot and recognise all the characters. Now, Pocahontas was probably my favourite Disney character when I was growing up. It was probably the first one where it was someone with dark hair. It wasn't a blonde princess. It was someone who was quite a warrior, someone who was really empowering, especially for little girls. I felt, you know, she was able to save the man, and she was able to dive off of cliffs and all these amazing things that she was doing, and she had, her best friend was a raccoon and a hummingbird, and it was a film that I absolutely loved, but none of it was really true. So Pocahontas was a real person, that is true. And the colonists did go to where she lived, that is also true. But Disney really romanticised her life, and they painted this picture of love and admiration and understanding. But that's so far from the truth, it's hysterical. The real story is actually one of tragedy and one of violence, about a young woman, a young girl, who was abused, kidnapped and possibly murdered as well. And this is all by the people who are meant to be protecting her, I mean. So in today's video we're going to be talking about the real Pocahontas, and we're going to be sharing her story. So Pocahontas is classed as one of the first indigenous women who went missing and was potentially murdered as well. I say potentially, and you'll find out a bit later on why I say that. Although we know her as Pocahontas, she did actually have two other names. Now I am probably going to butcher these, so I do apologise. What I'll do is I'll put them on the screen as I try to say them. I'm going to read them off my iPad as we go. So the first name is Amarnut, and that was her primary name. And her second name was Matuka, which means flower between two streams. Now, she lived in a tribe near a place called Werowocomoco. So in the Disney movie we see John Smith. He's a man that Pocahontas falls madly in love with, but in reality he really wasn't like this. He was actually a monster. He was 27 when he came through her village. She was only about 9 or 10, and she never fell in love with him. So this whole narrative of them being the same age and she taught him understanding and they fell in love, that's all completely fabricated. The children of the area also feared John Smith as well. He was known to enter villages demanding food and supplies, and he would hold chiefs at gunpoint whilst he did this. So the view we have of John Smith through Disney's eyes are a wonderful man who was able to learn and adapt and understand and accept. So such a far cry from the real truth. So the English colonisers arrived in the 1600s, and this was a really scary time for the indigenous people, because the young women and children were targeted and abused. Now I'm not going to spell out exactly what type of abuse, because I'm sure you can imagine. Because Pocahontas was the chieftain's daughter, she was actually targeted. She was seen as a prize, as a gem, and unfortunately the older she got, the more of a target she actually became. At the age of 15 or 16 she was kidnapped, and she had to give up her firstborn as well. So you know, the colonisers arrive when she's around 10, and around the age of 16 she's kidnapped. So they've waited 6 years and they've taken her because she's grown into this beautiful woman and she's a chief's daughter. That's all, that basically painted a target on her back. So around that time that she was kidnapped, she'd actually just married Kocoum. Now if you guys remember Kocoum from the Disney adaptation, then you'll remember this big strong man with the bear prints on his chest. And he also died, but not by the same people that kidnapped Pocahontas in real life. In the film he was killed by one of the colonisers who I think couldn't shoot straight or something from memory. So again, that is a massive difference between what we've seen and actually what really happened. An Englishman with the name Samuel Argyle vowed to find her, believing that if he had a captured chief's daughter it would stop all of the attack from the indigenous tribes on the colonisers. He then also said to the chief, "Don't worry, Pocahontas will only be gone temporarily." That was a promise that was broken extremely quickly. The colonists had no respect really for Pocahontas and her people. And this is evidenced by Samuel Argyle giving the chieftain a copper pot. Now the significance of this copper pot is that he said he sold Pocahontas, or he traded her and he got this copper pot. Basically saying she's only as worthwhile as this pot. I mean, that's so disrespectful. These people are going to someone else's land, to their village, causing all sorts of turmoil, trauma, and then insulting someone by saying your daughter is the same amount of worth as a copper pot. One arsehole, you know. So after the insulting copper pot incident and Pocahontas had been captured, she was actually shipped back to England. She had to give up her baby to be left and raised by the people in the village, and her baby was called little Cocoam. Unfortunately, she never found out that her husband had actually been murdered. When she got back, it was alleged that she was actually abused and again assaulted by her captors. Now I imagine it was probably constant. It was probably all the way back from on the ship, and then when she got back, because that's just the way that these people seem to think. If you're lower than them, then you're their plaything, they can do anything to you. So that's kind of the impression that I got when I was doing this research, that it was just never ending for her. Later on, she actually gave birth to a baby boy called Thomas. She was then converted to Christianity and she was given a different name, and she was called Rebecca. So now they've taken her identity as well. I mean, this poor woman had everything stripped away from her. It's just awful. So some English folk did actually disapprove of the colonisation and about the injustices that were shown to the indigenous people, and a result of this is that Pocahontas was brought back to England, as I mentioned, but she was brought back as a political symbol to show peace between the English settlers and the indigenous tribes. Now that's obviously a narrative that's been spun by the colonisers. No one actually can confirm that the indigenous people are okay. I doubt that they really got a chance to speak to Pocahontas, so she probably didn't or wasn't able to tell them that she was there out of, you know, not in her free will. But then I would say there's probably a language barrier as well, so would she have been able to communicate anyway? So there are accounts from Pocahontas that say she suddenly realised that she was being used by the English people. She was being used as a symbol, she was being used as a false account of peace, and that she just wanted to go home. So realisation hits that actually, you know, this is not just I've been kidnapped, it's I've been kidnapped to perpetrate these lies or to, you know, give substance or something. Now she did actually meet John Smith on her travels to London, and she expressed her anger at how he abused his position as leader of the colonists. Now for those die-hard Disney fans, you've probably seen Pocahontas 2, where she is actually in London and she does meet him. Now I'm wondering whether the people who actually made Pocahontas 2 knew that she would have seen him in London, or whether it was just a coincidence that that happened in real life and happened there. But she did meet him, and again, they didn't fall in love. There was absolutely no romantic feelings between them. From everything I've read, she absolutely despised the man. He saw women and people below him as playthings and just someone that, you know, had to bend to his will or what have you. Now read between the lines on that one. I'm not gonna get the angry YouTubers after me for saying something I shouldn't say, but you can kind of, when you're reading it, you get the impression that he just, no woman was his equal. So in spring 1617, she was actually due to go home, and she was deemed healthy enough to board that ship and go. However, and this is where I said the allegedly murdered bit at the beginning of the video, shortly after having dinner with Argyle and John Rolfe, she vomited and died. She wasn't even 21 at this point, so colonisers at the age of 6, kidnapped at the age of 16, died by the age of 21. So for 15 years of her life, she was probably living in fear. She didn't know what was going on. She'd been separated from her baby. She was in a different country where potentially she couldn't communicate. She had a new name, she had a new religion. This poor woman had so much going on in such a short amount of time. So some historians believe she died of pneumonia, whereas others believe it was some form of dysentery. Now call me crazy, but you're due to go home. You've been brought up as a political symbol, you've got children, you're due to go home though. And all of a sudden, after having dinner with the man who kidnapped you, you die. Sounds like poison, right? You eat, you're sick, and then you die. I smell a rat. I think there's something else that went on here, to be honest with you. I have no proof, but I've watched enough documentaries to think that potentially there was something else going on here. So the story, it doesn't end for her family. The tragedy continues. So when they found out that Pocahontas had died, they actually wanted her body to be brought back to her village, but this was ignored, and instead she was taken to Gravesend and she was buried in a church. Her father was absolutely distraught at this, and he died a year later. People believe it was from grief. And I think you could actually believe that, because, you know, his daughter has been taken away and now she's died and he can't even bury her the way that he wants to. It's just devastating. It's just blow after blow after blow for them. Now that is, in a nutshell, the story of Pocahontas. I couldn't really find too much more around it. We've kind of got the essence of what it is. But it is fair to say that Disney did take artistic liberties when it came to the story of Pocahontas. They definitely romanticised her life. They glossed over the true trauma that inflicted her and impacted the indigenous people. Now, I'm not saying that Disney could have put all that in, but I also think it's so important that we do understand the true story behind some of these movies. And I'm not just saying Disney, I'm saying there's other movies out there who have romanticised or even demonised someone. And obviously they've been demonised to make a movie, and movies sell and romance sells and horror sells, and I get that. But I do think it's important that we do understand that this was a very real person, and she and her people and her family went through very real trauma. As much as I love the movie, now I've learned all of this, I probably won't ever see it the same. And when I say I loved it, I have the doll, I had the books, I had the lunchbox, the bag, you name it, I probably had it, because I absolutely adored the story. That's it for this video, guys. It's not an overly long one. Like I said, I didn't have that much information to kind of present around this. There isn't that much out there which isn't repeating what I've already found. Hopefully you guys liked the video. I do want to bring back more of the alternative history. I want to try and do once a month, but let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of this story, guys, and if you feel it's changed your view of watching the movie going forward. Maybe you won't watch it, maybe it's something you wouldn't want to show your kids now. Anyway, guys, like the video if you like the video, leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and press that subscribe bell. We've got so much great stuff coming out this year. We're posting twice a week and you don't want to miss out. Catch you in the next one.